Okay, UFC 293 this Saturday from Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. Your main event for the Middleweight Championship of the world. It will be the last style bender, Israel Adesanya, taking on Sean Strickland. Now, yes, of course, the fight that we all want, let's just be honest with ourselves, is Adesanya versus DWCS. Now, that fight is being postponed for now, assuming Izzy gets past Sean Strickland. That is likely next for the World Championship. But Sean Strickland gets his crack at the World Championship in the co-main event. Tuivasa takes on Alexander Volkov. I think this isn't one of the strongest UFC pay-per-views that we have seen. I've seen a lot of criticism on this card, and I understand. The card is not the best card, but you've got two really good fights headlining. I know originally Kape and Haqparast was going to be on this card, which was really going to elevate this card. However, now it is Kape and Felipe Santos. So we're going to talk about that fight later. We've got 12 fights on this card. And folks, if you haven't yet, though, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. And my goodness, we have been on an absolute heater as of late. I mean, look at what we did on the Gon Spivak card. We went 9-4-11. The two I got wrong, Reese McKee, the Irish Zombie, and then we got Jocelyn Edwards wrong, but Jocelyn Edwards beat Nora Canol in that fight. That was ridiculous. We got gone in the first round. The second round TKO, directly on the dot. We got Manon Fiorot to win by decision. We got pretty much everything you could ask for on that card. We got 9-4-11. The week before, we were doing pretty well as well. We've done really well as of late on these cards. Holloway Zombie, we went 10-3. O'Malley Sterling, 10-2. The main event was not great, but it's fine. We've been doing really well on these cards as of late. And before we get into the video, or into our picks for the video, just weekly contender series picks, I think this card is I think it's pretty easy to call, just to be honest with you. It's one of these cards where it feels like it's an easier contender series card to call. The first fight is going to be the hardest fight. It's a fight at bantamweight in the women's division. It's going to be Dion Barbosa taking on Rain Guerrero. I think Guerrero is going to pick up the victory. I'm going to take her to win this fight by decision. Again, I think that's probably the toughest one to pick. I've already looked at some of these fights. Then we've got Silva versus Kevin Vallejos. I'm going to go with the undefeated Kevin Vallejos to win this fight. Again, at 145, you look at the Tapology picks, 91% going with him. He's 21 years of age. We're going to take him to win by first round knockout. Then you go to our next fight here between Chad and Dylan. We're going to take Chad to win this fight. We're going to take the South African fighter to get it done. He's taking on a young 23-year-old fighter, but again, for Dylan, he lost 2 fights ago in LFA. You look at what Chad's been able to do winning over there in Brave. I'm going to take him to win this fight. I'm going to take him to win by second round TKO in the middleweight division. Then you got another one. Again, it feels like another easier one to pick. You've got Siri City, I believe how you say his name, from Canada, taking on Ramon Tavares. Again, I'm going to take City to win this fight. 91% of voters going with him. It makes sense. He just fought a month ago. Look at Tavares as a guy who has not fought in a major American regional promotion, which is interesting because you usually see that out of a lot of these guys. But Tavares, what was the promotion he fought for recently? It was Combat Night Pro, which is, it's a Jacksonville-based promotion, at least I think. Give me City to win this fight. I think he's going to get it done in the second round by TKO. And then our final fight in the main event, you have got in the 205-pound weight class, you have got heavy favorite in Bruno Lopez. 97% of voters going with him. Makes sense. Again, fought in LFA, taking on Brenson Ribeiro in this fight. Lopez is probably going to run right through him. I don't think this one's all that competitive. I think Lopez is the way better fighter. He comes in there, runs straight through him. He's going to win this fight by first round knockout. Okay, let's now get on to this 12-fight card. Okay, our first fight, Kevin Jousset versus Kiefer Crosbie. I don't know how this fight got its way onto a pay-per-view card because there's two guys making the UFC debut. Now, for Kevin Jousset, he's won his last 3 before that, losing a split decision on Eternal MMA. His last loss came in 2022. He's got a fight against Jack Della Maddalena all the way back in 2019 where JDM beat him in the second round. Now, Jousset's opponent will be Kiefer Crosbie. I believe Crosby's coming in at a slight underdog. Crosby's 10-3. He's fighting out of SPG Ireland. You may be familiar with him, of course, in Bellator. He had fights against the likes of Charlie Leary and Gorgi Karahanian. He lost both of those fights. He got finished in both those fights after the first round. The Leary fight was a doctor stoppage after the first round, and then, of course, the Karahanian fight was an arm triangle choke in the first round. So it's a guy in Kiefer Crosbie who goes 4-3 in Bellator. One of those Bellator fights was an illegal knee against Mike Jackson, a 12-11 Mike Jackson in 2019. But again, it's a guy that didn't see the most success in Bellator. He wins 2 fights after leaving Bellator, and now here he is in the UFC against Kevin Jousset. Again, I said it last week when we saw a couple fights like the Morgan Shirey fight where you saw guys making their UFC debuts against each other, and we see it yet again here in Sydney. But it's just interesting. I get why, because Jousset, of course, they want to get another hometown guy. Jousset will fly the French flag, but he is fighting out of Australia. He is a guy who fights out of City Kickboxing. So again, if you see the French flag with him when he comes out, or again, just in the UFC, if he's wearing the French fight kit, he is born in France. But again, he is a City Kickboxing guy. So training out of that gym over there. That's why this fight's on the card. But again, you look at a guy like Kevin Jousset, right? His last fight, okay, it's a win 4 months ago in Hex Fight Series. He beats the guy's 12-6, takes him until the final 7 seconds of that fight. Before that, beats an 11-1 guy by split decision. And then before that, beats an 0-1 James Crawwell by unanimous decision late in December of 2022. I don't love the levels of competition that Jousset has fought for Kiefer Crosbie. Again, this is a guy, like, nothing against Gorgi Karahanyan, but I believe that was Karahanyan's last win. Yeah, it was. It was Karahanyan's last win since he went on his big losing streak, losing to Saul Rogers, losing to Adam Piccolotti, losing to Kane Musa. Like, Karahanyan has not won since he beat Kiefer Crosbie. So again, Karahanyan is way past his prime. He's 38 years old now. And then Charlie Leary, again, this is a guy Leary who's 3-4 in Bellator. He's lost back-to-back fights to David Gallon. He lost to Soren Bach. He lost to Yancy Medeiros. Like, he beat Kiefer Crosbie. Before that, he lost to Tim Wilde. So again, I don't think either of these guys have fought the best fighters. Well, I think Crosby's fought guys we can at least make comparable, comparisons to, but the guys he's fought haven't been all that great. When, again, you look at Kevin Jousset, guys Kiefer Crosby's fought have been good, but he hasn't beat them, but Kevin Jousset's opponents haven't been all that good. So it's a real hard look, honestly, at this fight, because you look at what Kiefer Crosbie, by the way, the nickname is Big Daddy. Didn't think I was going to be saying that on an MMA video, and I'll be really entertained when Bruce Buffer says that on the first fight of the night. He might make Joe Martinez do the pay-per-view just because of that alone. Anyways, Crosbie, again, a guy who's going to throw the hands. Kevin Jousset is going to throw the hands as well. Jousset's going to try to take you down. Crosby's able to do the same thing. For Crosbie, he beat Alex Oliveira. That's why he's kind of here, honestly. That's been one of his fights inside the UFC. I believe that's Oliveira's last fight. Yeah, For Oliveira, he left the UFC. He won 2 fights, then went to fight Kiefer Crosbie. He loses, then beats Stefan Sekulic, and lost his last fight to Alexander Shlemenko. Again, in beating Alex Oliveira in 2023 is not impressive. I'm just sorry, it's not. I don't think Kiefer Crosbie's that great. I don't think Kevin Jousset is all that great. However, I just don't think we've seen what Jousset is capable of, just because levels of competition have not been very good, and we haven't really gotten to see him against a good opponent. So I'm going to take Kevin Jousset to win. I think he's going to get it done by unanimous decision. Okay, on to our second fight of the card. We have got, I believe this is going second. Oh, okay, they changed the order on me. That's great. We will go to, I believe it's this fight. Yes, here we go. I don't know why they did that. It's going to be Gabriel Miranda taking on the favorite in Shane Jung. Now, Shane Jung is a favorite on this card, but he's lost his last 3 fights. Shane Jung's claim to fame for the longest time in the UFC was, okay, he loses to Alexander Volkanovski, but he wins his next 2 fights. So his only loss is Alexander Volkanovski. So I remember talking about this when he came into that fight against Ludovic Klein. I don't remember if I picked Ludovic Klein or Shane Jung. I think I took Ludovic Klein. I'm not sure. But remember, that was the selling point on Shane Jung. It was like, okay, the guy's 2-1 in the UFC, but his one loss is Alexander Volkanovski, who at that time was already the champion, and who at that time had already defended the championship against Max Holloway. But Shane Jung's lost his last 3 fights. Ludovic Klein, he gets head kicked, then he gets beat by decision by Omar Morales. Then he loses to Blake Bilder in his last fight. So he hasn't been great. Omar Morales was able to take him down, not really hold him down though, and then Blake Bilder again was able to take him down, but outstrike him as well. That's where this fight gets interesting, because again, Gabriel Miranda is a guy who is primary submissions. That's all he does. I know in his first fight in the UFC, it was about a year ago at this point. He got knocked out. Actually, the day I'm recording this, it is exactly a year ago, September 3rd. This video is going out on September 3rd too. But Benoit Saint Denis knocks him down 3 times. Saint Denis goes in there and mops the floor with him. The fight is not competitive. Now, that's great, but it's just, Miranda was not able to get the fight down. You know how good Saint Denis is. Saint Denis just won again in Paris. That guy's legit, seriously. Benoit Saint Denis is a legit UFC fighter with real potential. Miranda didn't make the best, showing out himself in his first UFC fight, but Shane Jung hasn't shown anything great either in his last 2 fights. He just hasn't. Again, the Klein loss, he gets knocked down in the first round. Omar Morales just dominates him. Blake Bilder beats him. Again, I'm surprised Shane Jung's honestly still on the roster. They gave him another shot because they're back in Australia. They want more hometown guys, like what they did in the Paris card. They put as many French fighters in the card as possible. When they're in Singapore, they just say, all right, all the Asian fighters we're going to put on this card, right? That's just what they do, and that's what they're trying to do for that Grasso-Shevchenko card. All the Mexican fighters, if you have, if you have any Mexican in you, put you on that card. It's just, that's not me saying that. It's just like, that's what the UFC does. Let's just be honest with ourselves. The Mexican independence card, they're going to put all the Mexican fighters on that card. They don't want to put it in Mexico because what happened with Rodriguez and Jeremy Stevens won, so they put it in Las Vegas instead. Anyways, Shane Jung and Gabriel Miranda, I think it's an interesting fight because, again, it's dependent on if Miranda can get Jung down. Jung has been okay on the ground. Like, the only guy to really beat him on the ground was Alexander Volkanovski. That's why I think it makes this fight very interesting. I just don't think Shane Jung's very good. I just don't think he is. Again, he has not been good recently. I know Miranda taking him down and Miranda taking him back or holding him down is going to be something that has been completely against how Shane Jung has been getting beat. He has been getting beat by getting outstruck. But again, you lose 3 fights in a row. That's not ideal. I'm going to take Gabriel Miranda to win this fight. I think Miranda gets it done. And again, if he's going to win, you're likely going to take him by submission. I think Miranda makes quick work of Shane Jung. I think he goes into enemy territory, and Gabriel Miranda picks up the biggest win of his fighting career to date. Going to take MMA Master Zone, Gabriel Miranda to win this fight by first round submission over Shane Jung. Okay, so our next fight, they switched the order on me, but it's not this. I gotta find it. Here we are. Blood Diamond taking on Charlie Radtke. Okay, so if you don't know who Blood Diamond is, he's one of Israel Adesanya's guys. He's a CKB guy. He's a city kickboxing guy. But he's exactly that. He's a kickboxer. Like, Blood Diamond, it's not his sport. I'm just like, okay, you've seen kickboxers. You just saw Nora Cornell beat Jocelyn Edwards. Now, she didn't beat Jocelyn Edwards on that card in France, but she's a kickboxer. She went to MMA. Alex Pereira went to MMA. You had the guy in the Contender Series last week. Can't think of his name on the top of my head, but he went to MMA too. He didn't get the win in the Contender Series, and Dana White didn't even sign the guy that beat him. But again, you have a lot of these kickboxers coming over to MMA. That's great. Israel Adesanya, right? Like, even though he fought MMA too, but Blood Diamond is one of those guys. But man, Blood Diamond has not been good. Like, Blood Diamond has been very bad. The Orion Cosey fight, Orion Cosey just holds him down basically the entire fight. I was surprised Orion Cosey did not get the submission, if I'm being honest with you. The Jeremiah Wells fight showed exactly what a half-decent grappler and a half-decent wrestler is going to do to Blood Diamond. Take him down, take his back, by triangle, win the fight. That's what a good grappler is going to do to Blood Diamond. So who do they give him in his third UFC fight? They give him a guy who just won his last fight by rear naked choke in the main event of CFFC for the CFFC Welterweight Championship. Okay, do you think Blood Diamond would be the Cage Fury champion if he went to Cage Fury? I don't think he would be. I think, again, he is so one-dimensional. He's not like Alex Pereira. He's not like Ciryl Gane. He's not like Israel Adesanya. He doesn't have any takedown defense. He really doesn't. Like, okay, I know I think, the Jeremiah Wells fight, Wells went 1 for 5, but as soon as you get him down, like, okay, it's grappling. Like, this is not Israel. This is a Khabib Nurmagomedov saying about Conor McGregor. You're grappling, 0. Like, seriously, Blood Diamond is the definition of that. Khabib made fun of Conor McGregor for having no grappling. Blood Diamond has no grappling. Like, once you get him down, it's reps. And Orion Cosey, primary wrestler, couldn't get to the arm triangle, didn't even attempt a submission. He just kind of went for it. He kind of just, rode out top position, tried to land some strikes, but really, like, the third round of Orion Cosey, he landed 5 significant strikes against Blood Diamond. That was really a spot for Orion Cosey where he could have just, gone out there and, made a name for himself, picking up a finish over a guy like Blood Diamond. He didn't, or I guess he's going by Mike Diamond now. But I think, again, I think Charlie Radtke's going to take advantage of this. Again, I posed the question to you, and I don't think Charlie Radtke's all that great, if I'm being honest with you. This is a guy who's lost in Trident fights in 2021. He went to Bellator, lost to Chris Gonzalez. Like, he's won his last 4, which is good. Again, he is the CFFC welterweight champion. So, again, he was probably going to be in the spot eventually anyway. I think probably you would have seen him maybe on a Contender Series spot. But they book him around the UFC. I don't have anything against it. I think CFFC is one of the better regional promotions in the USA. I think at CFFC, you got LFA, you've got Fury's really good. That's, again, the one down south. CFFC Philly, Pennsylvania based. I think those are the three best ones. Obviously, LFA I think is the best. But like those are the three. If you get a guy from CFFC, from Fury, or from or Invicta, obviously for women too. But if you get LFA, like these are going to be good fighters. Like these are guys who, if you become the CFFC, if you come Fury, I guess is under. I would say Fury's under CFFC. But if you get a CFFC or LFA champion, like those guys, if you win that championship, and of course it's like the equivalent to I think Cage Warriors over in Europe. You're going to see those guys in the UFC eventually. Those guys are going to, or sorry, you're going to see those guys on the Contender Series. Like, those guys are going to get opportunities to go fight on the big show. This is what Charlie Radtke gets. Again, likely he would have eventually found himself in the Contender Series, but he gets booked in the UFC. And again, I don't think this fight's close. It is completely dependent, though, if Charlie Radtke can get Blood Diamond down. Because, sure, if Charlie Radtke just struck with Blood Diamond for 15 minutes, Blood Diamond would knock him out. Yeah. But again, you got a guy in Charlie Radtke who just went in there, just beat Raheem Forrest for the CFFC Championship, and Raheem Forrest is pretty damn good. This is a guy, again, who will likely get another shot at the Cage Fury Championship. He'll probably win it. You'll probably see him on the Contender next year. That's the level of guys Radtke's beating. Blood Diamond, I don't think would beat Raheem Forrest. Give me Charlie Radtke to win this fight. The only, there's two picks here, first round submission or decision. Give me Charlie Radtke by first round sub. Okay, on to our next one. It's not that one, it's this one. Here we go. Nasrat Haqparast is back. He's a minus 410 favorite over Landon Quinones. Another spot where it's like, why is Landon Quinones in the UFC? Lee Hammond's not in the UFC, and that's Conor's guy. Like, that's the guy that Conor really wants in the UFC. He wants him to go back and run the fight back against Kurt Holloway. Sure, like, maybe. But, like, you got Haqparast and Landon Quinones here. Interesting. I think it's an interesting fight because Landon Quinones, he comes off the Ultimate Fighter. He loses to Jason Knight, right? Like, Jason Knight ends up losing to Kurt Holloway. Holloway, of course, beat Lee Hammond and then went in there and beat Austin Hubbard. I think it doesn't get mentioned that Holloway, I think, did he miss weight? No, he didn't miss weight against Austin Hubbard. Okay, I don't know why Tapology is saying he missed weight. Did he? I don't remember that. I don't think he did. Anyways, okay, Landon Quinones, he doesn't even win a fight on the Ultimate Fighter because, again, all of Conor's guys lost except for one. And then, of course, Katona went to Conor's team. I didn't watch the Ultimate Fighter season. I didn't. I sat through Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes. And then I also sat through Brian Ortega and Volkanovski. I watched a couple episodes of this, and then I just kind of didn't care. Like, I'd watch the fights, but, like, I'd watch the reality TV crap. And, like, reality TV is sometimes really stupid, but sometimes it's funny. I just couldn't get into the season. It was nothing like Conor versus Faber. It was my favorite season in the Ultimate Fighter ever is John Jones versus Chael Sonnen. It's been nothing like that. The show has gone. That was peak Ultimate Fighter for me, honestly. Again, I was not there I did not watch Randy Chuck. But peak for me was Conor, or not Conor. That was good too, but peak for me was Chael Sonnen and John Jones. That was awesome. Anyways, Haqparast Quinones. So Quinones, again, is coming off the Ultimate Fighter. He doesn't win. He doesn't even win a fight in the Ultimate Fighter. But then he gets booked into a UFC spot. Now, again, he came from Titan FC. Titan FC, he's the lightweight champion over there. Sometimes you will get good talent from Titan FC. But Titan FC also books some of their best fighters against guys who are absolutely dog water. Like, again, Quinones' first or second fight in Titan FC, he beats a guy, or fourth fight, sorry, he beats a guy who was 0-3, and he was 2-1 at the time. Like, they have bad fighters on Titan FC sometimes, and that's kind of what Titan FC is known for. A lot of fights they have in Florida, it's the southeast thing. Again, they have some bad fights over there, but they have some good fights too. But Quinones was the champion over there. He was the champion. He defended it. He goes to the UFC now. He gets Nasrat Haqparast. It's a tough ask. This was supposed to be Haqparast versus Sam Patterson last week in Paris. Instead, Haqparast is on this card now against Landon Quinones. Haqparast, again, he beat John Makdessi in his last fight. We're going to talk about Makdessi later, but he beats Makdessi by unanimous decision. He goes in there, he fights pretty well. His last year in Paris, again, knocks down Makdessi in the second round, really goes out there and outstrikes Makdessi when it mattered. He put more damage on Makdessi. He loses the first round, he wins the next two. It's a good performance for Nasrat Haqparast, but a close fight. Before they lose to Bobby Green, loses to Dan Hooker, two fights against, two upper level guys, but loses both of those. Beats Tafa Garcia before that, beats Alexander Munoz, who isn't very good, loses to Drew Dober, beats Joaquim Silva, but now we're back in 2019, right? I just don't understand the matchmaking here. I know, again, you needed a guy for Haqparast because, of course, Patterson fell out. But this is a guy, Nasrat Haqparast, who was booked against Jamie Mullarkey earlier this year. Mullarkey is going to be fighting John Makdessi, the guy that, again, Haqparast just beat. I understand that because they want to get Mullarkey a win, it feels like, because Haqparast is a tough out. This is a guy, again, a really good striker, Haqparast. When he sits down his punches, he does have power. Like, most of the fights that Haqparast is going to win is going to be by knockout. Not by knockout, sorry. Well, honestly, before his big losing streak, he was winning by knockout. Not losing streak, but it's like, he lost 2 in a row. But Haqparast, again, what I meant to say, most of the fights Haqparast is going to win are going to be by strikes, not by finishes for say, but he's going to go in there, he's going to win a decision by touching you up on the feet, right? Quinones is a guy who, again, got subbed by Jason Knight in 55 seconds on the Ultimate Fighter, but again, Quinones is a guy who wants to strike with you as well. So I think it makes for a really interesting stylistic matchup. I think it makes for a really good fight. However, it's just tough to pick against Haqparast here. It is, because honestly, how does Haqparast lose? Quinones lands a big shot and knocks him out. There's a reason Haqparast is at minus 410 and Quinones is at plus 320. Now, on this card, there's a lot of favorites who I just think are gonna win. And again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If there's any people don't understand what I do with picking fights, I pick fights merely on who I think is gonna win the fight. Again, I will look at odds and I will, say like, oh, this is a good play and stuff, because I do look at that stuff, but I'm not going to tell you to go bet on landing Quinones at plus 320, because it just doesn't make sense. I don't think Quinones is going to win. Now, you might think Quinones is going to get the nod. I just personally don't think that's going to happen. And again, so there's, I'm not going to tell you to go bet on, plus 600, randos each week. It just doesn't make sense. I pick who I think is going to win the fight. I will tell you if there's, if I think this is good money on underdog. But again, I'm primarily picking just based on who I think is going to win the fight, because that's how I started watching MMA. And that's, how I watch MMA. I watch based on who I think is going to win the fight. And I don't really look for over-unders. I just don't. Again, I look at that stuff, but again, I watch MMA. I don't really I think sometimes it's stupid to look at odds because, again, you don't get a fair assessment of who you actually think is going to win the fight. However, in this fight, that's besides the point. Minus 410 for Nasrat Haqparast. Throw in a parlay, I guess. Haqparast is going to win by decision. He's going to go out there. He will outstrike Quinones. I see the pathway for Haqparast to get his first knockout win in the UFC since his win over Joaquim Silva in 2019. I can see that 100% happening, and that's actually his only knockout win in the UFC. So I can see that potentially happening. Do I think it will, though? No, I think Quinones will stay in there. I think Haqparast wins a decision. I think Haqparast really shows, why is this dude even in the UFC? I'm sorry. I don't know why he's in the UFC. It doesn't make sense to me. Our next fight is not, it is this one. We have got Jack Jenkins taking out, no, we've got Jamie Mullarkey next. I don't know why the UFC just switched the order, randomly. It doesn't make sense to me. And now I'm looking like a dumbass scrolling through all these. Anyways, Jamie Mullarkey taking on John Makdessi. Okay. So Mullarkey's 16-6. He's coming off that last fight where he loses to Muhammad Nemov by second round TKO. Mullarkey before that was picking up wins. After the Jalen Turner loss, he goes in there, beats Michael Johnson in a fight where I don't think he won. I think Michael Johnson beat him, and then he beats Francisco Prada by unanimous decision. That was a layup fight they gave him on that Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev card. Now for his opponent in this fight, in John Makdessi, he's 38 years old. It kind of feels like, again, Makdessi's kind of getting at the end of his career. However, 2 fights ago, he just beat Ignacio Bahamondes. Bahamondes is pretty good. I know he just lost to Ludovic Klein, but again, Bahamondes is pretty good. For John Makdessi, again, so he lost his last fight to Nasrat Haqparast. We just talked about it. Haqparast again gets the knockdown in the second round. Make the case Makdessi wins the first round. I still think John Makdessi is really good. And I honestly think there is value in John Makdessi here. I don't know if I'm going to pick him just yet, but seriously, I don't understand why on Tapology 92% of people are going with Jamie Mullarkey. Mullarkey just lost his last fight. He got knocked out. That was 3 months ago. I don't love that at all. I really don't. He got flatlined. He got knocked out a couple months ago. And again, after you take a certain amount of damage, you should probably, and this is an actual thing, you shouldn't fight after you get knocked out. And you should take at least, I think, 5 months after you got knocked out to come back and fight. Jamie Mullarkey is coming back in 3 months. I understand he wants to fight on this card. I understand the UFC wants to get him on this card. But my goodness, I don't understand it, because John Makdessi still can hit you pretty hard. I know Makdessi's not the guy he used to be. Makdessi's been in the UFC for a very long time. This will be his 20th walk in the UFC octagon. The guy made his UFC debut back at UFC 124. The main event of that was George St. Pierre versus Josh Koscheck. When I was a kid, I would get the USA Today newspaper, and they would always have an ad for the UFC fights. That was one of the fights, St. Pierre versus Josh Koscheck, and I put them on my wall. Like, that's just how long John Makdessi's been fighting in the UFC, right? Like, yeah, the co-main event of that card was Stefan Struve. I did not know that was a thing, and that was where Jim Miller also beat Charles Oliveira. But again, that's how long Makdessi's been fighting in the UFC. He's been fighting in the UFC for a very long time. Again, George St. Pierre versus Josh Koscheck 2 was when John Makdessi made his UFC debut. He wins it by unanimous decision. The guy's been around for a very long time. Again, but my point is he can still hit you very hard. He can still hit you hard. I know Makdessi's not got a knockout finish since UFC 186. That was when Kyoji Horiguchi got a shot at the World Championship against Demetrius Johnson. It has been decision victories for John Makdessi since then. But man, I don't mind John Makdessi in this spot. I don't know. Again, I always go undetermined on picks until I actually pick the fight. This one's close for me, and I know Makdessi's 38 years old, but he didn't look that bad in the Nasrat Haqparast fight. Like, he kind of outstrikes Haqparast in that one, right? When you look at the Bahamondes fight, he still outstrikes Bahamondes. That was only, 2 years ago? Again, I know it has been a year since he fought, so that's where it does get tricky, because he is 38 years old now, and when is he going to, really slow down? He beat a guy in 2019, Jesus Pinedo. If you don't know who Jesus Pinedo is, well, you should be watching the PFL, because the PFL is going to get legit, because they're going to buy Bellator in a couple months. However, Jesus Pinedo looks like an absolute killer in the PFL right now. This guy is going on to fight for the World Championship against Gabriel Braga in their rematch later this year in November. Now, again, I have my gripe on Jesus Pinedo because how old PFL wouldn't let this slide. How do you have a guy who missed weight in the playoffs still fight, and then he knocks out Bubba Jenkins and he's still going to the championship fight? Like, again, I think that shouldn't have happened. I think they should have an alternate. I think Brendan Loughnane should have been fighting Bubba Jenkins again. That's besides the point. Jesus Pinedo, that doesn't dispute the fact Jesus Pinedo is good. And John Makdessi and Jesus Pinedo had one fight in the UFC, or two fights in the UFC. His last fight in the UFC, though, was against John Makdessi, and John Makdessi beat him by unanimous decision. I know that was all the way back in, 2019? But again, Jesus Pinedo's a guy who the PFL is really pushing. He beat Brendan Loughnane, he beat Bubba Jenkins in back-to-back weeks, and he's a fight away from becoming a world champion against Gabriel Braga. Now, that's tough because Braga already beat him earlier this season. I don't know. But I don't know if Pinedo can win that fight. I don't think he's going to. Honestly, Braga's going to become the world champ. But again, this, that's showing how good Makdessi is. Mullarkey's going to come at you, and Mullarkey will strike with you. Again, this is a guy who goes up there and gets finishes. He's a good striker. Makdessi, though, is a good striker as well. I am very hesitantly, though, picking Mullarkey to win by unanimous decision. This is why. He's 9 years younger. He's 29. Makdessi's 38. Again, I think it's because, and I'll take Mullarkey at home. I think, again, crowd on his side. He is from New South Wales. This fight is in New South Wales. I'm taking Jamie Mullarkey to win. I think he gets it done by unanimous decision, but it would not surprise me at all if John Makdessi wins this fight. I think there's a very good chance he does, honestly. Okay, on to our next fight. Here it is. We have got Mariscal taking on Jack Jenkins. Now, Jack Jenkins is a minus 220 favorite in this fight. He's 12-2 professionally. Of course, those two losses both came back in 2017. He gets a guy here in Mariscal who made his UFC debut and beat an undefeated fighter in Trevor Peek in Jacksonville. That fight was on at 9 o'clock in the morning, my time. But again, Mariscal 1-0 in the UFC, comes in, of course, after fighting in LFA. He fought in a main event spot in LFA in his last fight. He wins it, then he comes into the UFC and beats Trevor Peek by unanimous decision. That's a great fight. It's a really good fight. Go back and rewatch it. So, it's buried on the undercard, but it's a good fight. Mariscal and Peek really go at it. Peek, again, a very entertaining fighter who's going to go out there. He's going to try to knock you out with every single punch that he does throw. Mariscal, stays in there, still wins every single round, but still gave us a competitive and a fun fight at the same time. This fight's good, though, between Mariscal and Jenkins because it's a real step up in competition for Kape Mariscal. It is. Now, okay, how good is Trevor Peek really? I had that question after he fought Eric Gonzalez because Gonzalez is not a UFC caliber fighter at all. And Peek kind of, it was an entertaining five minutes, but my goodness, that dude is so susceptible of being hit. I was surprised Mariscal didn't knock him out. We did find out that Trevor Peek's got a good chin in that fight in Jacksonville. But again, how good is Trevor Peek really? And how good is Jack Jenkins? People are high on Jack Jenkins. I don't think he's as good as people think he is, honestly. I think he's good, but I don't think, look at the guys he's beat. He's beat Don Shainis, no longer in the UFC, and he beat Jamal Emmers. I don't think Emmers is bad, but Emmers is 2-3 in the UFC, right? I don't think, I think I need a couple more fights to really say that Jenkins is going to be that future star that some people think he is going to be. Again, it is now or never for Jack Jenkins. He is 30 years old. But, okay, if he beats Kape Mariscal, okay, cool. You beat a guy who's 1-0 in the UFC. Where does that put you for Jack Jenkins here? This is a guy who's, you know what, like in the top 30 maybe. Like, again, he'll be 3-0, but it's really, you're looking for a big step up in competition. Mariscal is really not that guy at 145 pounds to get you that. However, like, again, if Jack Jenkins wins, like, there's a chance they just give him Alex Caceres, and Caceres sends him right back down the list, right? But who knows? You know, Jenkins, good striker, didn't really that impressively beat Jamal Emmers, like, barely got by against Jamal Emmers. He beats him, but it's not a great fight. Emmers holds him down that entire third round. You know, I'd say Jack Jenkins outstruck him the first two, but they're close rounds. The Don Shainis fight, he goes 3 rounds with Don Shainis. Mariscal, again, you've got that one fight against Trevor Peek. He kind of just went to a bunch of different regionals before he made his way to the UFC. He fought in LFA, he fought in CFFC, Cage Wars, Combate. Like, he fought everywhere before the UFC. He fought Bryce Mitchell in 2017. He fought Gregor Gillespie in Ring of Combat in 2016. If you're not familiar with Ring of Combat, that's the one up in the Northeast, New York area. You know, that's where, like, Weidman and Uriah Hall and Marab and Ralphine Stotts were at, and Aljo at one point, I believe. So, again, Mariscal's been everywhere. Again, Mariscal showed in his last fight. Okay, he can wrestle and he can also strike as well, but seriously, what does he do against Jack Jenkins? How does he beat Jack Jenkins? It's probably through wrestling, because, again, Jenkins' only 2 losses are by submission, even though, you know, Don Shainis had a little bit of success wrestling against John Shainis. John Shainis had a little bit of wrestling success against Jack Jenkins, and Jamal Emmers did as well in that third round. So I think that's where you have to look at this fight for Giuseppe Mariscal. If he's going to win, it's going to have to be through wrestling. I just don't think he's going to be able to get him down. I think Jack Jenkins is the way better striker, and I think Jack Jenkins keeps the fight on the feet, and he beats Giuseppe Mariscal. He'll get it done by unanimous decision. Okay, on to our next one. Carlos Ulberg taking on Da Jung, but he changed the name to Da Jung. It's Da Jung for now. I don't know. We'll have to watch commentary, the post-fight, the pre-fight stuff on Da Jung. I'm going to call him Da Jung for now. This is the featured prelim. Now, Carlos Ulberg 8-1, the only loss being to Kennedy Nzechukwu. Nzechukwu lost back in 2021. The guy's on a 4-fight winning streak now. Carlos Ulberg looks like a killer now. Now, the one fight against Kennedy Nzechukwu, again, is the Nzechukwu incredible comeback, right? Again, you know, Ulberg's I'm dead to rights, but Nzechukwu comes back, makes one of the better comebacks you're ever going to see, honestly, like in the UFC ever in that fight. And it's like, you got a guy in Carlos Ulberg who has won his last 4 fights, and on the other side, you get Da Jung, who has lost his last, 2 fights in the UFC. He's lost back-to-back fights against Devin Clark and Dustin Jacoby. Now, those are borderline top 15 guys. Jacoby's obviously in the top 15. Clark, you don't, kind of, right? Guys, main event on the UFC card before. Carlos Ulberg is well on his way to the top 15. I think he's really close in doing so. Like, again, I think his next fight, you can get a guy like, I don't know, you know, if he wins this one, then you give him maybe, honestly, a Dustin Jacoby, who just beat Kennedy Nzechukwu. That'd be a good fight. You give him, Alonzo Menifield would be a really tough test in terms of wrestling. Hell, maybe a Jimmy Crute, right? Like, those are the type of guys you're probably going to see him against next in Ulberg. Because Crute, right, lost to Menifield. Has Crute fought since then? I don't think so, right? Yeah, no, he hasn't. Okay, Crute's on a 3-fight losing streak. Anyways, like, those are the type of guys that, that Ulberg should fight. If he can beat Da Jung, which, again, I think he will. But, Ulberg, good striker. He's going to stay in there. He's going to try to go. He's going to try to use kickboxing to his advantage. You look at what he did to Ihor Potieria and to Nikolai Negumereanu. Both beautiful left hooks that both put his opponents down. The Tefan Chukwi fight, win by knockout. The Fabio Charant fight is a back and forth. Actually not back and forth. It's just a beating by Carlos Ulberg. The back and forth fight was the Kennedy Nzechukwu fight. Hell, in 2 rounds, Carlos Ulberg, 146 significant strikes. Crazy stuff. Again, Ulberg's got a lot of power, and it's a troubling fight for Da Jung because Devin Clark in his last fight, Da Jung just got grounded for most of it. Again, Clark won a lot of the exchanges on the ground, and the Dustin Jacoby fight, Dustin Jacoby knocks him out in the first round. And before that, Da Jung has his biggest win ever, I would say, in the Nzechukwu fight. He knocks out Nzechukwu, just keeps hitting him and 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 hitting him with elbows over and over and over again. But again, that was all the way back in 2021. And the guy has not won a fight since then. This just feels like an all Carlos Ulberg fight here. For me, it feels like one-way traffic for Carlos Ulberg. What does Da Jung do? Seriously, Da Jung doesn't wrestle that much. He did against Will Knight, but there's an obvious, Will Knight's not a very good wrestler. Carlos Ulberg, his defensive wrestling is getting a lot better. Again, another guy who's come over from kickboxing, but he's kind of been, he's the 205 version of Blood Diamond if Blood Diamond had success in the UFC. This fight's not competitive. This is a reason this is on the featured prelim. Ulberg from New Zealand. Now, of course, this fight's going to be in Sydney. They want to get the crowd going. You get another city kickboxing guy. The crowd's going to always be on the CKB guys' side. Carlos Ulberg goes in there and absolutely wipes the floor with Jung. I don't know what Jung possibly does to him. I think Carlos Ulberg coming to a top 15 soon. Ulberg beats Jung by first shot knockout. Again, there's just not much I can give you on this fight because I just think it's one-way traffic. Ulberg's striking is way too good. I think he's got too many weapons on the feet. I think that left hook's probably going to land, and just like his last two fights, Carlos Ulberg, left hook, first round knockout. Okay, on to the main card. Tyson Pedro starts it off here against Anton Turkalj. Now, the Pleasure Man, yes, that's his nickname, Anton Turkalj gets Tyson Pedro here to kick off the main card. Okay, so Tyson Pedro, again, another one of these guys, not CKB guy, but in New Zealand, no, he's from Australia. He's from Sydney. So yeah, again, you get a guy or training out of Queensland now, but you know an Australian fighter in Tyson Pedro taking on Anton Turkalj. This fight's very close for me because you look at what happened to Tyson Pedro in his last fight. Modestas Bukauskas gets him, and Bukauskas just kind of wins a boring striking fight, because Pedro comes back, right? He's got, the 5-year layoff after he loses to Shogun Rua in 2018. 4 years later, he comes back. He beats Ike Villanueva. Ike Villanueva had no, strength at all in his legs. If you kicked Ike Villanueva's legs, he was going to fall over, and that's what Tyson Pedro did to him. After that, Pedro goes out there and beats Harry Hunsucker. Well, Harry Hunsucker, not very good. They give him a true opponent, and Bukauskas beats him by decision. How does Anton Turkalj win fights? Well, he hasn't done it so far in the UFC, but Anton Turkalj has been, a really good, he has occasional power. He's got that big spinning back fist win CF and Brave CF to make his way on the Contender Series. But Turkalj is a guy, he's going to go in there, he will throw with big power, but he's going to try to tie you up, but he's going to try to get you down on the ground. That's what he did on the Contender Series. That was the famous Dana White Contender Series episode where Dana White gets out of watching those fights and he's like, be like Joe Pyfer, because Pyfer was the only one who got a finish. He gets on everyone's ass for not being Joe Pyfer, basically, and, because the fights were boring that week. They were. But one of the fights was Anton Turkalj. Now, he gets signed 2 weeks later because they want him to go fight Jaitan Almeida, of all people, on UFC 279. Almeida goes in there and submits him with a rear naked choke in the first round, right? But and it showed you how good Almeida is because, again, Turkalj is the guy who does have good grappling skills as well. But that's what Turkalj is going to do to you. He's going to try to go in there. He's going to try to grapple you, and that's going to be a real test. I know he lost to Vitor Petrino in his last fight. It was a really good back-and-forth fight. It was on that card, that Jan Divalishvili fight. Again, Turkalj loses every single round, but it's a good fight on that card, on the Jan Marab Divalishvili fight. This one's interesting because, again, Tyson Pedro is going to get tested on the ground. He has not been tested on the ground recently. Shogun was able to do it too, and Shogun kind of, exposed a little bit of the grappling game in the second round of their fight, right? Shogun was able to go down there and grapple and out-grapple Tyson Pedro. So you've got the hometown crowd on Tyson Pedro's side taking on Anton Turkalj. Turkalj, is going to try to tie up with them. He's going to try to wrestle. It's an interesting fight. Honestly, it's a real interesting fight here. Because Pedro's gonna have the power. Pedro's gonna try to do to Anton Turkalj what he did to not Modestas Bukauskas, but what he did to Ike Villanueva, what he did to Harry Hunsucker. That's gonna be what Pedro's gonna try to do to Turkalj. Because if Turkalj stays standing with Tyson Pedro, sure, that will probably eventually happen. But if Turkalj is able to get this fight down, it changes everything. Again, Turkalj has been out-grappled in his first two fights in the UFC because he's fought two really good grapplers. What is going to happen when he fights a primary striker in Tyson Pedro? I don't know. That's why I think this fight's real interesting. It's close for me. It really is, because for me, it's either you get a first-round knockout or a second-round knockout by Tyson Pedro, and Turkalj just simply isn't able to take him down, or Turkalj takes him down and holds him down. Again, though, Pedro has not been tested on the ground since the Shogun fight. Ilir Latifi was able to take him down. Safarberg Safrov was able to take him down. That's, again, pre the second run in the UFC. However, I'm going to take what we've seen before, and I've seen Tyson Pedro beat on the ground so far in the UFC, and I'm going to take that to happen again. Anton Turkalj gets his first win in the UFC. He goes in there, and he absolutely dominates Pedro on the ground to start off the main card against what the fans are likely going to want to see. Anton Turkalj says, let's wrestle, holds Tyson Pedro down, and keeps him down. Anton Turkalj picks up the win by unanimous decision. Okay, on to our heavyweight fight here on the main card. We've got the rematch, Justin Tafa taking on Austin Lane. Austin Lane, the former Fury FC heavyweight champion, but Justin Tafa gets this fight against Austin Lane. It is a rematch of their fight in Jacksonville earlier this year. That fight ends by eye poke in the first round. They have rebooked it, and they're going to run it back on this card here tonight. I don't know if people are going batshit crazy. You can probably tell where I am. It just living conditions kind of suck. I'll just be honest with you. A bunch of drunk people outside. Anyways, don't do drugs, kids. Austin Lane taking on Justin Tafa. So now, again, this fight was originally on the Emmett Topuria card in June of 2023. Again, the fight happens because Justin Tafa gets poked in the eye. Tafa and his camp go halfway across the world. They come on to fight in Jacksonville, and the fight ends in 29 seconds because Austin Lane pokes him in the eye. The fight's over. Now, again, the Tafa brothers, you saw in Junior Tafa's last fight, not just in Junior Tafa's last fight, the Tafa brothers, obviously have something against Parker Porter. They just love knocking Parker Porter out in the first round. Tafa now gets a different fighter in Austin Lane. Now, Austin Lane, I think, honestly, is, for the longest time, he was just the guy, for me, who lost to Greg Hardy in Greg Hardy's first professional fight. He gets knocked out by Greg Hardy in 57 seconds. He built his way back, though. He wins the Fury FC Championship by winning a really good fight against Juan Adams. He defends the championship when the guy he fought blew out his knee in the first round. This guy that beat Richard Odoms, I believe his name was, before he fought Juan Adams. That's when I watched Fury FC a lot. Yeah, there was a time frame in 2021 where I was an avid, or 2022, where I was an avid Fury FC watcher back when I didn't have a life. No, that's a joke. If you watch Fury FC, good on you. Fury FC is a good promotion. Shout out to my guy Anthony Doe, who fought Paris Miranda on that card. Well, if you know who Anthony Doe is, that's random tidbit too. Anyways, so for Austin Lane, he's a flyweight who fights a lot of future UFC guys, and he kind of loses every single fight. But formerly AKA Sunnyvale guy, now an AKA San Jose guy. Anyways, Austin Lane, he beats Lunsford because Lunsford throws a leg kick and blows out his knee. Then he beats Richard Jacoby on the Contender Series in 2022. He gets booked against Tafa once, fight gets canceled, then booked again, poked to the eye. Now here we are. I remember the first fight, I believe I took Tafa to win by first round knockout. Yeah, the prediction doesn't change. I could have just honestly ran back that initial prediction video. But seriously, what changes since that first fight? Nothing. Nothing changes. It's the same exact fight. Sure, okay, Lane poked him in the eye, but now we're back, 4 months later? Nothing's really changed since then. Tafa's got heavy power. He's going to sit back and he's going to throw big shots. He's going to try to knock out his opponent. Austin Lane, again, is more... He can get knockouts, but Austin Lane is going to take some more time than Justin Tafa will in terms of knocking someone out. But again, Lane's not bad. Lane has got decent wrestling skills, decent enough, better than Tafa wrestling skills. Lane actually makes weight because Tafa didn't make weight that one fight where he weighed in at 267, which is crazy. But yeah, Austin Lane's not bad, but is he on the level of Justin Tafa, and can he knock out Justin Tafa? He can potentially, but will he? No. Tafa's going to go in there and probably knock him out. Again, since Tafa got knocked out against Yorgan de Castro, he's been pretty solid. He's won his last 2 fights against Harry Hunsucker and Parker Porter. Nothing's going to change. I think he's going to still win this fight by first round knockout. I think he's a lot better than Austin Lane. I think he's got the better power advantage. It was interesting because the UFC brought in Austin Lane at 34 years old. They don't usually do that, but I think Tafa wins and Tafa gets it done by first round knockout. Again, I have nothing really much to say differently than the first time I talked about this fight. So yeah, give me Tafa by first round knockout. Okay, on to the final 3. Manel Kape takes on Felipe dos Santos. Let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. This fight's it feels like this is a pretty easy pick too. It just is. Manel Kape, again, originally Starboy was supposed to fight Kai Kara-France. Fight doesn't happen. Kai Kara-France withdraws from the fight, so now you get Manel Kape taking on Felipe dos Santos. Dos Santos was a guy who was supposed to fight in the Contender Series. He gets shot immediately from the Contender Series straight to fighting literally the heaviest puncher in the weight class of Manel Kape. Manel Kape is a couple fights away from the championship, and it looks like Brandon Royval will be fighting Alexandre Pantoja for the World Championship. Now, I like the fight because I've been a big fan of Raw Dog Brandon Royval. That's his nickname. I'm really excited for that. I'm really glad Royval gets the opportunity. However, he's already lost to Pantoja. But you can't give Moreno a 4th shot without fighting again. So I think what they're gonna do Pantoja and Royval. I think that'll probably be in December, and they'll do the co-main event. Brandon Moreno, or not co-main event, but on the card as well, probably main card. Brandon Moreno, Amir Albazi. Boom, winner's fight. It makes all the sense in the world. Now, again, Moreno probably wins, and Moreno probably gets another crack at the championship. And the UFC's probably hoping Royval can pull out the victory because they don't want a fourth fight between Pantoja and Moreno because Pantoja's beat him 3 times already. Doesn't really feel the need for the fourth fight. However, like that's kind of what feels that feels like what's next at the 125-pound weight class. But Manel Kape is a guy who is coming up in the weight class as well. Only 29 years old, from Angola, but by way of Portugal. Manel Kape is good. This is a guy, again, who is close to the championship. You've got Pantoja, you've got Moreno, you've got Albazi, who's supposed to fight Haqparast. Fight doesn't happen, though, but you got Royval who's fighting for the belt. Then you got Matheus Nicolau, who just got knocked out by Royval, and then there's essentially Manel Kape. I think with the win here, Manel Kape, it sucks because the way the division is shaping up to be, and Manel Kape has, like, seriously no chill on Twitter. It is hilarious. It is very offensive, but it's hilarious at the same time. I'm sorry, it just is. Like, the trash talk Manel Kape does on Twitter is insane. That guy's crazy. But unfortunately for Manel Kape, and I think, like, I'll talk about Felipe Dos Santos in a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit about him. Like, he's all right. Manel Kape's going to win this fight by first-round knockout. He's one of the few flyweights that you can feel confident about picking by first-round knockout. He's that good, and that's how much power he has, especially at 125 pounds. However, again, I don't think this fight does much for Manel Kape. I don't think it does. In terms of ranking him for the World Championship, it really doesn't, because the Haqparast fight kind of puts him at 1 fight away from the championship, right? Or kind of puts him at next, you might get the title fight. Fighting a guy who's making his UFC debut, sure, it gets your name out there, and that's really what this does. It gets your name out there, and it gets you on a pay-per-view card. But other than that, what does it do for you? Because I still think he's going to have to fight Haqparast next anyway, because I think Albazi's going to fight Moreno. Royval is fighting Pantoja for the belt. There's no other fight. What, Matheus Nicolau coming off a knockout loss? You're not going to do that. Tim Elliott maybe, but he's going to fight Muhammad Mokaev. Alex Perez has lost 2 in a row, and you know, again, what Manel Kape called Alex Perez, that was crazy. It's funny, but it's crazy. Like, what do you do with them? And I just figured out that Tatsuro Taira is fighting David Dvorak next, so why are they doing that to Dvorak? Oh, that sucks. Anyways, I guess they're just going to ship him off to Bellator. Anyways, again, like, Kape's going to win this fight by first round knockout, but my problem with this fight, again, is, like, I think Manel Kape's just going to have to fight Haqparast anyway. For Felipe Dos Santos, this guy's 7-0. He is undefeated, sure, but who has he beat? Exactly. His last fight, he wins by unanimous decision on LFA 146. That was in November of 2022. You know, Dos Santos' best shot's going to be with grappling, probably. It's going to probably be by wrestling Manel Kape. I don't think it's really going to be there for him because Manel Kape has decent defensive wrestling also. But again, that's where Dos Santos is going to excel. It's going to be in terms of the wrestling, in terms of the grappling and the jiu-jitsu. But other than that, he doesn't stand a chance on the feet. He stands absolutely zero chance on the feet against Manel Kape. Manel Kape's going to win it. He's going to win it by first round knockout. Really don't got much else to say because that's a pretty safe one. Manel Kape, that's the lock of the night. Manel Kape by first round knockout. Not by first round knockout. That's not the lock. The lock is Manel Kape's going to win. Okay, on to our co-main event. In the heavyweight division, we have got Bam Bam, Tai Tuivasa, taking on Alexander Volkov. You have got the hometown guy here in Tai Tuivasa. He's from Sydney. He's going to be taking on Alexander Volkov. I like Tai Tuivasa a lot, but man, this is a tough fight because Alexander Volkov, again, I say it every single time he fights, but like this guy, when he's not fighting the absolute top guys, Alexander Volkov wipes the floor. He is the gatekeeper to the top 3. That's what Volkov is. Look at the guy's losses. Tom Aspinall, top 3 fighter. Cyril Gane, top 3 fighter. Curtis Blades at one point was a top 3 fighter. Derek Lewis at one point was a top 3 fighter. Those are the guy's 4 losses in the UFC. Everyone else he's beat. Everyone else. Verdum, Greg Hardy, Walt Harris, Alistair Overeem, Marcin Tybura, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Alexander Romanov. I watched back that Romanov fight yesterday. Alexander Volkov gets away with that fence grab. He gets away with that thing because I don't think Romanov wins the fight if he takes him down. But again, Romanov was a sitting duck on the feet once that fight was standing. Like he stood no chance of Volkov once that fight was up. Once that fight was up, or like once Romanov could not get the takedown. But Volkov's so good. Like we have seen a more aggressive Alexander Volkov recently. And Daniel Cormier said that after he beat Romanov, but it's true. He's won his last 2 fights by first round knockout. And I know he got submitted by Tom Aspinall in the first round by submission, but that's the fight that put Aspinall on the map. And again, he's the gatekeeper to the top 3. Aspinall's in the top 3. Like, do I ever think Volkov's going to fight for a championship? In all fairness, I don't think he's going to. Like, the winner of this fight, and I'll talk about matchmaking after I pick the winner. But like, again, do I think he's going to fight for the belt? I don't think he's going to. He's already lost to Cyril Gane. He's already lost to Blades. he's already lost to Derek Lewis, but Derek Lewis below him right now. But again, he's lost to some of these top guys. Like, what do you really do with Volkov at this point? If he can beat Tuivasa. Now, Tuivasa, again, lost to Gun and Pavlovich, who are, again, top guys. But, man, it just seems like Tai Tuivasa, he's good, but once he fights elite strikers, he gets beat. He gets beat when he fights the best strikers. He will beat pretty much anyone, I think, outside the top 5 who can't wrestle really well and who can't pick him apart in terms of striking, because, again, there's not many heavyweights that can really wrestle. So anyone who, like, except for technical strikers, I think Tai Tuivasa will beat pretty much all the guys outside the top 5 and outside the top 6, really. But some of these guys, once you get to the top, I don't think Tuivasa beats. And don't get me wrong, I love Tai Tuivasa. I think Tai Tuivasa is so fun to watch. You know, again, the shoey and everything, like everything Tai Tuivasa does is fun to watch. But I will name you the top of the weight class and tell me confidently that Tai Tuivasa beats any of these guys. John Jones, no. Pavlovich, no, we just saw it. Curtis Blades, no. Ciryl Gane, we've seen that, no. And again, he rocks Ciryl Gane, and he puts Ciryl Gane down. And, you know, Ciryl Gane kind of, you know, once he got knocked down by Tai Tuivasa, he was like, all right, the mindset flipped. He's like, all right, now I got to go knock you out. Because that's kind of, you know, gone. John Jones goes into fights. I think John Jones enjoys hurting people. Does Ciryl Gane enjoy hurting people? I don't think he does. I don't think he does. But he's a really good fighter, and he's the greatest striker in heavyweight history. I will remain. That's a fact. It's just John Jones is a tough fight for him, but Ciryl Gane might be the true number 2 in the weight class. Seriously, if Jones retires, when he does, there's a chance Ciryl Gane, I think, will get that belt eventually. I think he will. Anyways, again, Tai Tuivasa, Ciryl Gane lost. Tom Aspinall, he'd lose to. Jailton Almeida, just don't even talk about it. He'd lose. Drago, that's where we are. Miocic, he'd lose, right? I think, even at this point in Miocic's career, I think Stipe would still beat Tai Tuivasa, even though I think Tuivasa would have a chance. I just don't know what we're going to see out of a 40-year-old Stipe Miocic in November when he fights John Jones for the World Championship. I think John wins. And again, Ciryl Gane's win over Sergey Spivak makes me ask the question, just how good is John Jones? We asked the question, was it just because Gane's takedown defense is bad, or is it because that's how good John Jones' wrestling is? We got your answer. It's because John Jones is that good of a wrestler. But, like, again, I just don't think Tuivasa can beat some of these top guys. Gane picked him apart, and yes, Tuivasa will always have that one shot, and he will always get in your face, and he will always have that big, you know, big overhand right that can put you down. Yes. And he will beat guys like Stefan Struve. He will beat guys like Harry Hunsucker. He will beat Augusto Sakai. Hell, he'll even beat Derek Lewis. But Alexander Volkov is such a tough fighter to beat, and his only losses, again, are to Aspinall, Gane, Blades, and a prime Derek Lewis. He is very difficult to beat. Volkov's such a good striker, and his power is really developing as well. You saw what he did. He beat the hell out of Alistair Overeem, a couple years ago. Volkov's still only 34. Again, do I think Volkov's ever going to win the championship? No, but I think, again, he is the true gatekeeper to the top 3. I think Volkov's going to go out there, and I think he's going to knock out Tai Tuivasa. I think Volkov continues the streak of first-round knockout. I think that's, you know, I don't think that's a crazy pick, because I think Volkov's really coming into his own. Don't get me wrong, Tai Tuivasa can knock him out, and Tai Tuivasa can do exactly what Derek Lewis did to Alexander Volkov. That would not surprise me at all. But I think Volkov's too good of a technical striker. I think he's too good to get caught, and I think his power is too much for Tai Tuivasa. Alexander Volkov wins the fight. He gets it done by first-round knockout, again, cementing himself as a top 5 fighter. We'll see what he gets next, because honestly, what do you do with Volkov next? You look at the weight class. I think it's dependent on if John Jones retires. If John does retire, though, Pavlovich versus Aspinall feels like the next title shot. But maybe it's not. I don't know, because Ciryl Gane is impressive, but I still think it is. Even though I will make the case it should be Gane Pavlovich for the belt and Aspinall versus Volkov again, because it's tough, because Volkov's already fought all these guys, so maybe he doesn't get this fight next. Maybe he gets the winner of Curtis Blades and Jailton Almeida, I don't know, or maybe he has to go back down and he's got to go fight, I don't know, Spivak, Derek Lewis again, I don't know, because Volkov's just fought everybody. It's crazy, because Volkov's been around for so long. He fights almost, you know, and he's remained constant in this top 10. He's fought almost all these guys. However, in this fight, I think he beats Tai Tuivasa. I don't think Tuivasa's one-shot knockout power is going to be enough to beat him. I think Volkov stays there. I think Volkov uses his straights. Volkov eventually puts him down, and Volkov eventually wins. Alexander Volkov beats Tai Tuivasa by first-round knockout. On to our main event. Israel Adesanya comes in the last style bender as a minus 620 favorite. He will get the challenger. Fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada, you've got Sean Strickland. Okay. Is it one of the most undeserved title fights in UFC history? Maybe. Maybe it is. Now, I made a short film about Abus Magomedov once upon a time. I did a little series where I made 3 of those. Now, a lot of people saw the Jenkins DWCS video. The Abus Magomedov video a lot of people watched. Nobody just watched the time, it's late at night, I'm butchering names. Nobody watched the Tafa Aspinall video. No, it's fine. But it's just like, those videos are really good. Like, if you haven't seen those, seriously, go watch. It's on my channel. It's a playlist. Go watch the Closer Look series. I think those videos are really good. I just think they are. I think they're so much different style of videos than whatever I did or whatever I've done on YouTube with MMA. Anyways, nobody watched the last one. It got like 200 views, which is crazy because the Jenkins DWCS one got like 12K and a lot of people liked it. Anyways, that's besides the point. Sean Strickland got a title shot after beating Abus Magomedov. And Abus Magomedov's 1-0 in the UFC, 1-1 in the UFC with the one win being Justin Stoltzfus. It doesn't make sense. And I know, again, I saw this coming because Dana White said before the Abus Magomedov versus Sean Strickland fight, he said, you guys should credit Sean Strickland if he wins or loses because nobody wants to fight this Abus Magomedov guy. So you should give all the credit and all the power in the world to Sean Strickland because he's fighting this killer in Abus Magomedov that nobody wants to fight. Sure, that's fair. Abus Magomedov didn't stand a chance against Sean Strickland there. Sean Strickland absolutely dominates Abus Magomedov in that fight. And we saw it coming. I thought Sean Strickland was a way better fighter. And he did exactly what he's supposed to do to Abus Magomedov. He went out there and again, he destroyed Abus Magomedov. The fight before that, he beats Nasser Imavov. That fight was at 205 pounds. He lost to Jared Cannonier before that. I feel like Jared Cannonier probably should be the title challenger here. Based off his performance over Marvin Vettori, I feel like this should be Cannonier's fight. If DuPlessis, of course, couldn't fight this fight because, you give the guy a month and a half to come back and fight Adesanya, doesn't make sense. Again, I think this should be Jared's fight, but it's fine. It's not. It's going to be Sean Strickland's fight, which is, again, no complaints. I think it'll be interesting. I think the pre-fight, or I think the press conference is going to be the most entertaining part of this fight week. I'll just be honest with you. But again, Sean Strickland had back-to-back losses. He loses to Pineda and loses to Jared Cannonier. Beats Imavov, beats Abus Magomedov. That's a title shot. The problem is, again, the division's been wiped out. It's been wiped out by Adesanya. Look at all the top guys, okay? Whitaker's lost twice. DuPlessis, again, is next. DuPlessis is going to get the title shot next. Cannonier's already lost. Vettori's already lost. Costa's already lost, and then now we're on to Dolidze, Brendan Allen, Paul Craig, Imavov, Kelvin Gastelum, Jack Hermanson. Those are the guys who are next. I'll make a shout out to Kyle Borjaio. I think Borjaio might be in a position where he might get a title shot too, or they could just give him Marvin Vettori, and Marvin Vettori can just beat him like he did to Roman Dolidze, and then it just absolutely squashes your potential title challenger. I don't know, because it's hard because all the guys in the top are so good. Vettori's so good. Whitaker's so good. DuPlessis, again, has not fought for the championship next, so you don't know. But Cannonier's so good as well. It's just, these guys are so good. They can't beat Adesanya, but the new rising challengers can't beat these guys either. Now, Khamzat Chimaev's coming in the weight class, and we'll see what he does against Paulo Costa. But the problem is, the new guys like Dolidze, Craig, Brendan Allen, we'll see with the Imavov, who already lost to Strickland, right? What was I saying? Kyle Borjaio. It makes it tough for these guys because they get the top guys, and the top 4 who've already lost Adesanya are already so good. So it's just, it shows you how good Israel Adesanya is, though. It really does. That's how good Izzy is. Izzy's beat all these guys. I haven't talked about Izzy yet, but I will. He got the championship back after beating Pineda. It's the best performance of his career. You can feel great about his win where he beats Robert Whitaker in 2019, when he beat Kelvin Gastelum, the heart of a lion fight. Yeah, Izzy's good, but his best fight was him knocking out Alex Pineda. The guy he's lost 2-3 times, the guy who's knocked him out twice. He goes out there and he knocks him out cold, he puts him out cold. It's like Pineda's bad. He just beat Jan Blachowicz. He's in a world championship fight again. And likely, Pineda and Adesanya, I think, will see each other once more at 205 pounds next year. I think they will. No matter if Izzy beats or loses to DuPlessis, I think there's a very good chance that they fight again, maybe at 85, because that's where Pineda wants to fight, because he wants 2 belts. Why wouldn't you, right? I don't think Pereira should fight at 185 anymore. I think he's a 205 fighter now, and I think that's maybe where Adesanya and Pereira fight next, win or lose for both guys. Because Adesanya could still go up, fight Prochazka, maybe win, and then boom, Pereira's just got to fight Alexander Rakic and win, and then boom, title shot again, right? Again, Jamal Hill will be lurking because, of course, he'll be coming back from injury by then. But again, it just shows you how good Izzy is. He beats Pereira. Sure, he lost the first time, but Jared Cannonier won, Whitaker won, Vettori won, Costa, Romero, Whitaker again, Gaslam, Anderson Silva, Derek Brunson, Tavares, Vettori again, PFL champ Rob Wilkinson. He's that good. The guy is that good of a fighter. Seriously, what does Sean Strickland do? Sean Strickland doesn't have knockout power. He doesn't. Like, again, after every fight, Sean Strickland will say, man, guys, like, you know, I fought like a pussy tonight. I didn't get you all the finish. Well, he did get the finish against Abus Magomedov, and that was big for him. It's his first finish in the UFC since the Brendan Allen fight. That's great. But he doesn't have the one-shot knockout power like Alex Pereira had, or to really stun Izzy and wobble him. Adesanya is going to run laps around Sean Strickland in this fight. It will not be competitive. Izzy's too good. Izzy's too good. I don't know if he's going to finish him. I think it's a very high possibility. I will say Izzy's going to finish Sean Strickland. I will say he will get it done by knockout in the 4th round. I think Strickland will get to that 4th, but I think Adesanya then is going to find a way to knock him out. Again, Strickland, all he does is strike. Strickland, and that's going to be Sean Strickland's ego too. He's going to think that he can knock out Israel Adesanya, or he can put a pace on Israel Adesanya for 25 minutes. That's simply not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Seriously, I'm the only guy in this weight class right now that can beat Israel Adesanya. I think Kyle Baharo's getting there, but I don't think so. I seriously think it's Dricus du Plessis. I think du Plessis stands a real chance against Adesanya. And I don't know who I'd pick if that fight actually happened right now. I don't know. But I think du Plessis is the last real fight for Adesanya at 185 pounds, at least right now, until there is a new challenger. Well, Hamza Chimaev, sure. Yeah, maybe Chimaev. But that is Adesanya's last real test, I think, at 185 pounds, is Dricus du Plessis. This fight just feels like a filler fight. It's a filler fight because du Plessis can't fight yet. Now, if Sean wins, it's going to mess up everything, because then you got to do Strickland Adesanya again, then du Plessis waiting, or then hell, if you get a Sean Strickland Dricus du Plessis main event title fight, that would be crazy. But again, I just don't think Sean stands a chance. I don't think he does. I think Izzy's that good of a striker, which he is. Again, you've seen what Adesanya's able to do to these guys. Israel Adesanya completely melted and froze Jared Cannonier for 25 minutes. He beat him 50-45. Cannonier won 4 rounds against Sean Strickland. I know my math doesn't work that way, but in the case of the middleweight title picture, it kind of does. In title challengers, it does feel like that. Izzy wins. It's not close. 4th round knockout. He'll be up 3 rounds to nothing by then. Again, Strickland's going to make it entertaining. He'll make the press conference really fun. It's going to be a fun fight week. When it gets down to it, how does Sean Strickland win? I can't tell you. I think Izzy pieces him up, and Izzy eventually will win by TKO. It will be an accumulation of damage. It will be somewhat similar, I think, to when Alexander Volkanovski beat Korean Zombie, but I think Sean Strickland's going to hit the mat. I think Izzy's just going to follow up with a couple of shots. It's going to be a TKO victory. Adesanya's going to win. I think Adesanya will carry that knockout streak. He's going to call out Dricus du Plessis. I hope du Plessis is there. He probably won't be. He will call out du Plessis, and boom, you have seriously one of the biggest middleweight title fights in history. I know he just fought Pereira twice, and those were huge fights, but seriously, Izzy versus Dricus du Plessis is a huge fight with everything attached to it. Seriously, the hate that Israel Adesanya has for Dricus du Plessis, it sells. South Africa versus Nigeria, but really, Adesanya versus du Plessis is such a good fight. Skill-wise and everything that's backed around it, that's the fight I want to see. However, Adesanya is going to beat Sean Strickland, and it's not going to be close. Izzy gets it done by 4th round TKO. And folks, thank you all for watching our UFC 293 predictions here on the channel, with, of course, Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland in the main event. We'll be back next week for another UFC card. Another one, not in the Apex. It's at the T-Mobile Arena for the Flyweight Championship in the main event. Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko run it back on UFC Noche, which, of course, is Mexican Independence Day. So it's a really good card, 11 fights, crazy co-main event. Kevin Holland, Jack Dilla Maddalena is a wild fight. So I'm excited for that card next week. We'll be back next week for that card. And folks, if you haven't yet, though, again, make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. I'm, again, more than welcome to an open discussion down in the comment section down below. So again, folks, again for watching, and Mamba forever.